What's up, legends? Welcome back to Business Legends. I'm Alex, and today we're diving into one of the most insane business transformations in history. Picture this: it's 1997, and Apple Computer is literally 90 days away from running out of cash. They're bleeding money, their products are flopping, and everyone in tech thinks they're done. But here's the wild part: this same company that was on death's door is now worth $3 trillion. Yeah, you heard that right. Trillion with a T. So how did a company go from the brink of bankruptcy to becoming more valuable than the entire German stock market? Buckle up, because this story is absolutely wild. Let's rewind to 1976. Two college dropouts named Steve are hanging out in a garage in Los Altos, California. One Steve, that's Wozniak, is this genius engineer who can build computers in his sleep. The other Steve, Jobs, well, he can't really build anything, but man can he sell. And he's got this vision that regular people, not just computer nerds, should have computers in their homes. Crazy idea at the time, right? To fund their startup, Jobs sells his Volkswagen van for $1,500. Woz sells his HP calculator for $500. That's it. That's their startup capital, $2,000. On April 1, 1976, yeah, April Fool's Day, they officially start Apple Computer Company. Their first headquarters? Not actually the garage. According to Woz, it was Jobs' bedroom, but the garage story sounds cooler, so we'll roll with it. Here's where it gets interesting. They bring in a third co-founder, Ronald Wayne, to be the adult in the room. This guy drafts all the paperwork, designs the original Apple logo, which looked nothing like the Apple we know today, by the way, and gets a 10% stake in the company. But check this out, Wayne gets cold feet. Just 12 days after Apple is founded, he bails. Sells his 10% stake back to the two Steves for $800. Today, that stake would be worth over $300 billion. Ouch. But hey, Wayne says he has no regrets. Sure, buddy. The two Steves start building their first computer, the Apple I. And when I say building, I mean literally hand-assembling circuit boards with the help of Steve's sister and neighborhood kids. They're not even making complete computers, just the boards. If you wanted a keyboard or monitor, that's on you. But Jobs has bigger plans. He convinces a local computer store to order 50 units, then uses that order to get parts on credit. Classic Jobs move, selling products before they even exist. They deliver the order, make their first real money, and boom, Apple is in business. The Apple I sells for $666.66. Why that specific price? Woz just liked repeating numbers. Had no idea about the whole mark of the beast thing. Sometimes the biggest moments in history happen by accident. By 1977, they launched the Apple II, and this thing is a game changer. Color graphics, integrated keyboard, the whole package. It takes Apple from 7.8 million in sales to 117 million in just 2 years. These guys are on fire. Fast forward to 1980. Apple goes public, and it's the biggest IPO since Ford Motor Company in 1956. The stock opens at $22 a share and creates 300 millionaires overnight, including Jobs and Woz. Not bad for a couple of guys who started with $2,000 4 years earlier. But here's where the story takes a dark turn. By 1985, Apple is in trouble. Their new products are bombing. IBM is eating their lunch in the personal computer market, and the board is getting nervous. Jobs, being Jobs, is also being a total nightmare to work with. He's demanding, he's abrasive, and he's constantly butting heads with the CEO, John Sculley. A guy Jobs personally recruited from Pepsi with the legendary line, "Do you want to sell sugar water for the rest of your life, or do you want to come with me and change the world?" Plot twist: Sculley and the board side against Jobs. In 1985, they strip him of all operational control. Jobs tries to fight back, plans a boardroom coup, but it fails spectacularly. The company he co-founded basically fires him. Can you imagine? You create this company, pour your soul into it, and then they kick you out. Jobs is devastated. But instead of wallowing, he channels that energy into two new ventures: Next Computer and a little animation studio called Pixar that he buys from George Lucas. While Jobs is off building the future of computer animation, Apple is slowly dying. Product after product flops. The Newton message pad? Total disaster. By the mid-90s, they're licensing their operating system to other manufacturers, basically becoming just another PC company. Their market share drops from 16% to 4%. They're hemorrhaging cash, laying off thousands of employees. It's brutal. By 1997, Apple is in full crisis mode. They've lost $1 billion. That's billion with a B. They've got maybe 90 days of cash left. Microsoft is dominating everything. Even their own employees are jumping ship. Wired magazine literally puts Apple on the cover with their logo wrapped in barbed wire and one word, pray. That's how bad it is. Everyone thinks Apple is done. But then something crazy happens. Apple needs a new operating system, and guess whose company makes the best one? That's right, Steve Jobs Next. Apple buys Next for $400 million, and with it, they get Steve Jobs back. At first, he's just an advisor. But when the CEO Gil Amelio gets fired, the board begs Jobs to come back as interim CEO, or as Jobs calls himself, ICEO. Classic. Jobs immediately goes into turnaround mode. First, he looks at Apple's product line and he's disgusted. They're making like 40 different computer models, and he can't even explain the difference between them. A friend asks him which Mac she should buy, and he literally cannot give her a straight answer. That's when he knows everything needs to change. He draws a simple grid, desktop and portable on one axis, consumer and pro on the other. 4 squares. That's it. Apple will make 4 computers, period. He slashes everything else. Next, he does something nobody expects. He calls up Bill Gates. Yeah, Microsoft Bill Gates, Apple's biggest enemy. And he makes a deal. Microsoft invests $150 million in Apple and commits to making Office for Mac. The Apple faithful are furious. At the announcement, they literally boo when Gates appears on screen. But Jobs doesn't care. He needs the cash, and more importantly, he needs to show the world that Apple isn't going anywhere. Then comes the iMac in 1998. This translucent, colorful, all-in-one computer that looks like it's from the future. No floppy drive, which everyone thinks is insane. But it sells like crazy. 3 years later, the iPod. 1,000 songs in your pocket. The music industry will never be the same. But Jobs isn't done. See, he's noticed something. Cell phones suck. He hates his phone. It drops calls constantly. The internet experience is terrible. And he's worried that if phone manufacturers figure out how to put music players in phones, the iPod is dead. So Apple decides to build a phone. Not just any phone, they're going to reinvent the phone. The development takes 2.5 years and costs $150 million. Jobs is obsessive about every detail. At one point, he notices the prototype screen scratches when he puts it in his pocket with his keys. He demands they switch to glass. 6 weeks before launch. The suppliers think he's lost his mind, but they make it happen. January 9, 2007. Macworld Conference. Jobs walks on stage in his signature black turtleneck and jeans. Today, Apple is going to reinvent the phone, he says. Then he does this brilliant thing. He says they're introducing 3 products: a widescreen iPod with touch controls, a revolutionary mobile phone, and an internet communicator. The crowd goes wild for each one. Then he reveals the punchline. These are not 3 separate devices. This is one device. And we're calling it iPhone. The audience loses their minds. When the iPhone launches 6 months later, people camp out for days to buy it. The touchscreen, the apps, the real internet browser, it changes everything. The entire smartphone industry gets turned upside down overnight. BlackBerry, Nokia, Motorola, they all scramble to catch up, but it's too late. Apple owns the future. Today, Apple isn't just a computer company, or even a phone company. They're a $3 trillion empire. They make more profit in 3 days than they lost in that entire crisis year of 1997. The company that was 90 days from bankruptcy now has enough cash to buy Disney. Twice. They've got 2.4 billion active devices around the world. The iPhone alone has generated over $1 trillion in revenue. The App Store, which Jobs initially didn't even want, has paid out over $300 billion to developers. And here's the thing, Jobs didn't live to see most of this. He passed away in 2011 when Apple was worth only $350 billion. The guy who saved Apple, who gave us the iPhone, the iPad, who literally changed how humans interact with technology, never saw his company become the most valuable on Earth. So what's the lesson here? Is it about vision? Persistence? Being a difficult genius? Maybe all of the above. But I think the real lesson is this. Sometimes you have to get fired from your own company to become the person capable of saving it. Jobs himself said getting fired from Apple was the best thing that ever happened to him. It freed him to be a beginner again, to think different, as Apple's ads would later say. And that's what separates the legends from everyone else. When most people would give up, when the media is literally telling people to pray for your company, when you're 90 days from shutting down, that's when legends do their best work. That's when they change the world. From a garage with $2,000 to $3 trillion. From the brink of death to the most valuable company on the planet. That's the Apple story. That's how you build a legend. What an absolute roller coaster, right? If you dug this story, make sure to hit that subscribe button because we've got tons more business legends coming your way. Which company should we cover next? Drop it in the comments below. Until next time, keep building your legend. Peace.